Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and the next expansion for Hearthstone is nearly upon us, and so that means we can look at the cards through the Hearthstone application and get an idea about them and see what we might want to get when the card pack opening video happens and we open over 150 card packs. So to see the cards, you go into crafting mode, you click include uncraftable cards, and then you click over here to filter down to the latest expansion labeled Rumble, and we'll go there. So we've looked at all of the character classes: Druid, Hunter, Mage, Paladin, Priest, Rogue, Shaman, Warlock, and Warrior, which leaves only the neutral cards that can be used in conjunction with any of these. So Warrior can use Warrior cards and neutral cards. Warlock can use Warlock cards and neutral cards. This is where ideas are either going to tie in or they're going to be left hanging. If we find, for instance, a ton of rush cards, then there makes a lot more sense to make a Warrior rush deck. If we find no rush cards, then it kind of doesn't make a logical sense to try to make a Warrior rush deck. So we're hoping to fill in the gaps and find some just generally decent cards in general. I don't want this to take too long, and it's going to be a longer video because there's going to be several pages of neutral cards, so we just need to hop into it. I don't think we're going to even see any spells or weapons or secrets. Actually, I don't believe I've seen any secrets at all in this new expansion. Interestingly enough, I think neutral cards are just minions. So first we have a 1 mana, 1 attack, 1 health minion called the Gubashi Chicken. It's a beast class common rarity minion. I think the rarity stuff should be simplified at the very least, because common and rare doesn't really mean anything. Epic kind of means something because they're harder to get. It's really harder to get. And then legendary means you can only have 1 card instead of 2 copies in your deck, which that means something, certainly. But common and rare could be simplified just down to common. This minion has overkill, gain +5 attack. It's exactly like the chicken minion card, where if it was enraged it would gain +5 attack. The problem here is in both cases there's really no way that you would ever activate this, not as is. You would have to play some kind of buff to give this at least +1 attack, and then it would have to go and attack something that is a 0/1 minion so that it can do 1 damage more than the 1 health of the other minion, so then it can trigger overkill to gain +5 attack. Now theoretically, if you got to that point, you would have a 7/1 minion that only costs you 1 mana plus some more mana to buff. Then that 7/1 could theoretically attack a 0/6 minion, and on that second turn that it attacked, it would get another overkill of +5, which would make it a 12/1. Like, it's highly unlikely this would ever happen in any real gameplay, but I guess that would work. And then you could get it from a 12 to a 17 to a 22 to a 29, and then after 29 you'd have it at 34/1 attack, which you would never get to that point, at which point you could do a 1-turn kill. But even if you did that would have been 6 or 7 turns in which your opponent did absolutely nothing to stop you. All you would have had to do is do 1 damage to your minion. Yeah, I don't think this is a card many people play. Next we have a 1 mana, 0 attack, 2 health minion called the Gurubashi offering. At the start of your turn, destroy this and gain 8 armor. Actually, this would be a really good card in conjunction with a couple of the warrior armor cards, because there are cards that say if you have 10 armor, summon a 10 mana minion. So at the start of your turn, this getting destroyed and giving you 8 armor would potentially give you an 8 mana minion with just a combination and synergy of a couple of cards. It'd probably happen closer to the 6th or 7th turn, but that's still pretty good. Play 2 of these, you have 16 armor on your 2nd turn, even if you're not synergizing it with anything else. But I would say too that this is a kind of card you'd only play if you didn't have anything better, because you're just playing very defensively, and Hearthstone really isn't too much of a defensive game, at least not in the way I want to play it. Next we have a 1 mana, 1 attack, 1 health beast called the Helpless Hatchling. Death Rattle, reduce the cost of a beast in your hand by 1. You could play a couple of these and reduce the cost of a high level beast in your minion. There might even be a way to double Death Rattles. So you play 2 of these and you reduce the cost of a beast by 4 if you get double Death Rattles. Next we have a 1 mana, 2 attack, 3 health minion called the Serenet Taskmaster. Taskmaster. I'm not pronouncing anything well today. As a Death Rattle, summon a 0/3 free agent with taunt for your opponent. Is this Serenite Taskmaster? Is this supposed to be a Ghostbusters, the movie reference with the dog and Sauron? I think it is. Interesting. Is this a good card though? I think it's probably alright. It's the kind of card you'd want to silence. So if you have a strategy where you're going to end up silencing your own minions anyways, playing this would be pretty good. Yeah, there's some cards out there where silencing your own minions might make sense. Next we have a 2 mana, 1 attack, 4 health minion called the Belligerent Gnome. It has taunt and a battle cry. If your opponent has 2 or more minions, gain +1 attack. The odds that you play this on the 2nd turn and your opponent has 2 or more minions is kind of low, and a 2/4 with taunt is kind of low. It's not terrible. I've yet to see some really awful cards in this expansion, but it doesn't seem great. I feel like as we move further in that direction, we'll start to see more expensive, better cards that make more sense. You can basically in Hearthstone end your 1st turn, end your 2nd turn, end your 3rd turn. You probably even skip your 4th turn in many battles and still come out with a victory if you know what you're doing. Next we have a 2 mana, 3 attack, 3 health minion called the Booty Bay Bookie. Has a battle cry to give your opponent a coin. I'm not sure that that's really worth it, but it might be, particularly if you're playing with the panda bear that would then give you back a coin. There's never been a card that says guess a card that was in your opponent's hand, because if you could do something like that and play this and then know that a coin is in your opponent's hand, you could then cheat at some kind of gambling mechanic where they would show you 3 cards and say which one was actually in your opponent's hand. There was, I think, in the Solo Adventure a card like that, but I don't think that there's in regular ranked play or free play a card like that. And I still don't think this would probably be worth it to do that. But it's probably not a terrible card. I mean, giving your opponent a coin kind of sucks, certainly, but it's not terrible. Next we have a 2 mana, 2 attack, 1 health minion called Chi the Ankle Biter. Has lifesteal and the battle cry to deal 1 damage. I believe battle cries would also deal lifesteal, so yeah. You play this on the second turn, you might get 1 damage healed to your hero. You might get another 2 damage healed to your hero. So you're getting like 3 heals, probably minimum, for 2 mana, plus a 2/1 minion. That's pretty good. Particularly if you're playing the Paladin and you've spent like all of your health and need to heal desperately back to 30. Next we have a 2 mana, 0 attack, 4 health minion called the Dozing Marksman. Has +4 when while damaged. This would work in a warrior deck pretty well, to give him +4 attack, and it's not terrible. I mentioned that there's this card in the Paladin deck that's new that will turn all of your health to armor. So if you played it, it would turn all but 1 of your health, so 30 health is what you start with, into armor. So you'd have 29 armor, 1 health. Playing something like this and getting 3 heals after playing that card would be very, very helpful. But maybe mid-game or late game, maybe less practical than it seems. Moving on, we have a 2 mana, 2 attack, 2 health minion called the Fire Tree Witch Doctor. Battlecry: if you're holding a dragon, discover a spell. I'm still not sold on dragon decks. It seems definitely if you were to build a dragon deck, you're going to have to fill it with at least half of other kinds of minions that do something because you're holding a dragon but aren't dragons themselves, which seems awkward and odd. Next we have a 2 mana, 0 attack, 2 health minion called the Scarab Egg. Death Rattle summons 3 1/1 scarabs. It seems like this is directly a just ever so slight improvement of an already existing card. I'm fairly certain that there was a 2 mana, 0 attack, 2 health egg that summoned 2 1/1 minions before. Unless scarabs have some special ability, but there's no way to tell because they don't show you the scarab card, and scarabs don't exist anywhere in the collection, so there's really no issue here. There's plenty of white space here. They could clearly show me a scarab card right next to this and explain it better if they wanted to, but they don't. Next we have a 2 mana, 0 attack, 2 health totem class minion called the Serpent Ward. At the end of your turn, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. Yeah, that's not too bad. I'm not sure that there's specifically too many reasons to play a totem deck. There might be a couple of cards that synergize with that. But if you just played this, like, well, you could play it anywhere. I would have said this seems like it should be a Shaman only card, but it really doesn't matter. You could play it on any of the character classes, and on the second turn at least do 2 damage to this minion, and then on the opponent's turn they would have to spend time killing this minion or just put up with it, potentially doing another 2 damage the next turn. So that's a pretty good card. Next we have a 2 mana, 2 attack, 2 health pirate. I was thinking we'd probably see some more pirates added to the neutral class. It's called Sharkfin Fan. After your hero attacks, summon a 1/1 pirate. This is an amazingly good pirate card. In fact, this is definitely something that I'll be trying to get when I open the card packs, because if I am going to play a pirate deck, I definitely want that. This would work very well, by the way, with the cannon, which does 2 random damage to an enemy every time a pirate is summoned. So you could have this on the field, have 2 cannons, attack with your weapon, which the rogue would be the best character for that, because you can automatically use their hero ability to get a weapon, and then when you attack you would summon that 1/1 pirate, and that would trigger the 2 cannons again. And so you could play this on the same turn, so you could get your 2 cannons to attack because this was played, and then get them to attack a second time because it summons another pirate. I believe that's the only card that actually summons a pirate in that effect way. Next we have a 2 mana, 2 attack, 1 health minion called Shield Breaker. Battlecry silence an enemy with taunt. This is very good. If you really need another silence minion, because we've been using the Ironbeak Owl for a very long time now, and it's basically a 2 mana 2/1 minion that's a beast class, and so this would be, I guess, if you didn't want a beast class card for some reason, you could do this. And specifically it only works with people who have taunt, so any other minions that you might want to silence are probably not as good. But I guess if you had 2 Ironbeak Owls and you wanted 2 more, this is almost giving you that. But definitely look at getting Ironbeak Owls first. Next we have a 2 mana, 1 attack, 4 health minion called Soup Vendor. Whenever you restore 3 or more health to your turn, to your hero, draw a card. I think this would be kind of hard to trigger. Like, this doesn't feel like something that you could play very well. You'd almost have to be the priest and already have played Prophet Valen to double your healing abilities, and at that point you would be healing 4 instead of 2 and trying to draw cards for whatever reason. Seems a little too demanding, that one. Next we have a 2 mana, 2 attack, 3 health minion called Spellzerker. It has spell damage +2 while damaged. The problem with this card is it would work well with like a mage or anybody else that was casting spells, like Spell Hunter, although it really wouldn't work that well with Spell Hunter because you can't have any minions basically in Spell Hunter. The thing though is the only hero class that really has any cards that allows you to damage your own minions is the warrior. So you can play this, I guess, as the mage and then use your own hero ability to damage it 1, and then you get spell damage +2. But that's 4 mana for a 2/3 plus spell damage +2, and that seems like a little too much. Maybe if you have nothing better to put in your mage deck, you'd play it. I don't think you'd play it in any other kind of deck. Next we have a 2 mana, 2 attack, 1 health minion called Waterboy. Battlecry your next hero power. This turn costs 0. And that's phrased very specifically because there are some cards out there that let you use your hero power as many times as you want, or refresh your hero power multiple times. This might work actually pretty well with the hero replacement card of the Shaman, because it would lower the cost of casting summoning the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. But does it really lower the cost, because you have to play this, and even if you doubled the battle cry, it wouldn't double it. So actually I think this is a useless card. I think it really is only in the case that you need to summon a 2/1 minion and then use your hero power is this useful. I don't think it works for any bigger strategy than that. Next we have a 3 mana, 2 attack, 2 health minion called Banana Buffoon. Battlecry, add 2 bananas to your hand. It's not terrible, but then you'd have 1 mana plus 1/1 bananas, I assume, unless they're giving us some of the other bananas that were created for like solo adventures that never came out, because there was this idea of rotten bananas that was like -1 attack or -1 health or something like that, and that never got expanded into regular gameplay. The cards that give out bananas these in ranked gameplay are always +1/+1 bananas, and so unless they're changing that, it's a little expensive. It's a little expensive. It might be a way to buff if you're playing a character class though that really doesn't have anything else to buff, or if you're a new player and you really don't have anything better, this might be a decent card. But I guess that's true for any card. If you're a new player and you don't have anything better, you don't have anything better. You have to live with what you've got. Next we have a 3 mana, 3 attack, 4 health minion, epic rarity, called Drakari Trickster. Battlecry, give each player a copy of a random card from their opponent's deck. Is there any way in which you could manipulate that via deck destruction so that it does anything interesting? There might be. If you destroyed your own deck, there is a card that will draw the remainder of your cards. Like just draw everything and then you have no cards. And then if you could find a card that would put something in your deck that's bad, but it would have to be bad and in your hand, which that doesn't make any real sense. Yeah, maybe somebody smarter than me could figure out a way that this could be played and do something amazing, but generally speaking, I think it's impractical and not going to accomplish much. Next, we have a 3 mana, 2 attack, 4 health minion called the Masked Contender. Battlecry, if you control a secret, play a secret from your deck. Interesting. How is that going to work? If you control a secret, I guess it's going to just play a random secret from your deck. I don't think you're going to get to pick, because you could have a ton of secrets from your deck as options. I could certainly see if you're playing a lot of secrets as a hunter or something, though, this would be a good card to have. But if you're playing Spell Hunter again, you don't want any minions, so this actually doesn't make sense. Next we have a 3 mana, 3 attack, 5 health minion that's called the Ornery Tortoise. Ornery being just not pleasant, an old-fashioned word. Ornery. Battlecry, deal 5 damage to your hero. It's a beast. I don't know why you'd want to deal 5 damage to your own hero. There is a Warlock card that will gain attack for every bit of damage that the hero took in that same turn. So maybe you could play this twice and gain some attack that way and buff up that minion. But it's certainly a dangerous tactic at the very least. I don't think you'd play this in anything else besides that scenario. Next we have a 3 mana, 3 attack, 4 health minion called Untamed Beastmaster. Whenever you draw a beast, give it +2/+2. That'll work in your basic hunter deck quite well. I would like to say so far though that these cards are not boring. Even though some of them aren't great, so far from what we've seen in the neutral cards and for the most part in all the other hero class cards, this expansion is not giving us boring cards, and so I have to appreciate that. Next we have a 4 mana, 2 attack, 3 health minion called Arena Fanatic. Battlecry, give all minions in your hand +1/+1. Nice buff card. It's a little expensive, sure, depending on how many minions you have in your hand, but Doesn't seem terrible. Next we have a 4 mana, 0 attack, 4 health minion called Arena Treasure Chest. Death Rattle, draw 2 cards. This seems too expensive for what it is. Unless you were like doubling your Death Rattle, and even then that seems a little too expensive. Apparently there is an arena theme that's going to play a part in this expansion. Although the expansions, in all honesty, they're based on a very loose theme and idea, and that's about it. No real story plays a role in the game. Next we have a 4 mana, 4 attack, 5 health legendary minion called Griffith. Battlecry, discover 2 cards, give 1 to your opponent at random. Yeah. So Grifta. Oh, it's not Griffith. I totally misread that. It's Grifta, as in grifter. Again, maybe? No, I don't think that there's anything here for that. This would just be giving your opponent a random card for no reason so that you could get a card. It's definitely a gamble. But it's a decent card otherwise. 4 attack, 5 health for 4 mana. But you probably could do better. Next we have a 4 mana, 3 attack, 5 health minion called Halftime Scavenger. It has stealth. This is, I believe, the first card we've seen that has stealth and not stealth for the first turn. It also has overkill to gain 3 armor. So yeah, maybe you could get 6 armor out of that. Which maybe that makes sense, particularly if you're playing a deck where it makes sense to have armor or gain armor. Doesn't sound terrible. Next we have a 4 mana, 3 attack, 5 health minion called Ice Cream Peddler. Battlecry, if you control a frozen minion, you gain 8 armor. I think playing a Freeze Mage or Frost Mage would make sense with this. Yeah. So you could play this a couple times and gain some armor as the mage, which gaining armor as the mage could turn out to be very useful in certain scenarios. Next we have a 4 mana, 3 attack, 2 health Murloc. I believe this might be the first Murloc in the expansion too. Murloc Tasty Fin, Death Rattle, draw 2 Murlocs from your deck. I'm not super surprised that there haven't been more Murlocs. We've kind of have enough of them. There's enough to make a decent amount of selection and still have 30 Murlocs in your deck. Next we have a 4 mana, 3 attack, 5 health minion called the Regenerating Thug. At the start of your turn, restore 2 health to this minion. That's not too bad. That's probably a pretty good card, where you can just every turn attack something, take 2 damage, and then as long as it doesn't die on your opponent's turn, it's back to 5. Or at least heals 2 damage. Next we have a 4 mana, 3 attack, 2 health minion called the Rumble Tusk Shaker. It has a Death Rattle to summon a 3/2 Rumble Tusk Breaker. So basically you're getting a 6/4 for 4 mana. That's not bad at all. That's actually rather good. Kind of simplistic, not doing anything weird, but good nonetheless. Next we have a 4 mana, 5 attack, 3 health pirate, so another pirate called the Ticket Scalper. Overkill draws 2 cards, which would be very helpful in a pirate deck because there aren't any other effects that cause you to draw more cards as far as a pirate deck is concerned, as far as I can think of at least. Next we have a 5 mana, 3 attack, 3 health minion called the Arena Patron. It seems pretty low on the attack and health. Overkill, summon another Arena Patron. So this is a slightly better version, I think, of the tavern patrons, or whatever they're called, that already exist, where those minions, if they survive taking damage, if you don't kill them, and they're 3/3s, they will summon a new copy of themselves in it, and they go, everybody get in here, over and over again, and you end up hearing this everybody get in here sound file over and over again. And I wish you could just disable that one sound file because it's rather annoying. But in this case, instead of these guys having to take damage, they can literally just they just have to kill something with overkill, so it's better. It's probably more expensive because of that. So if I attack something with 0 attack, it will do, and 2 health, I would do overkill, and then I'd have a 3/3 and another 3/3. Yeah, that could get annoying fast, certainly playing against people with that minion. Next we have a 5 mana, 3 attack, 6 health dragon. We haven't seen a ton of dragons. The Dragon Maul Scorcher. Battlecry, deal 1 damage to all other minions. For a 5 mana minion that only has 3 attack, dealing 1 damage to all other minions, probably not really worth it. But maybe you would play this if you're trying to have a very tight dragon deck and you just need to make sure that all the minions in your deck are dragons. But there's a better dragon, I believe, already, that's an 8 mana that will do 2 damage to all enemy minions and has taunt. So I'm still not sure that this is worth it. Depends. Like, I'm still not sold on the idea of a dragon deck, and that's where my bias is going to come in on that. Next we have a 5 mana, 1 attack, 1 health minion called Former Champ. It has a battle cry to summon a 5/5 hotshot, apparently. So yeah, that's a pretty good deal. Like a 1/1 plus a 5/5 is effectively a 6/6 for 5 mana. What else could you do? You could double your battle cry, and then you could get 2 5/5 hotshots. You could play this twice and potentially get 4 if you're doubling the battle cry. Not terrible, but only playable really in a few scenarios where it would be really good to play it. You'd need to be building a deck around the idea of doubling battle cries, and when you're building around the deck around that idea, you may find that doubling this battle cry is not as good as doubling the battle cry of several other cards. Next we have a 5 mana, 6 attacks, 5 health minion called the Mosh Og Announcer. Enemies attacking this have a 50% chance of attacking somewhere else. There was already a version of this card, so I imagine this is just a slightly better version of that same card. I have noticed a decent amount of these cards are just slightly improved versions of already existing cards, which I imagine some people will be critical of when they start looking at all these cards expansions, but it's not been too much. It's getting close to being too much though. If the next expansion is full of a bunch of slightly improved versions of cards also, and it's not just like all new content all over the place, the people might start complaining more. I would also say that I have a personal complaint about this expansion coming out in December. I think this was a terrible decision, and I think they'll see it in their sales, is nobody's got the time or the money in the middle of December to be playing a new Hearthstone expansion. They should have put this out in January or February, given us a nice good 4 months between each expansion. They committed to releasing a lot more expansions than I think they really needed to, You know, you could do 3 a year and maximum, and I'd be fine. You could probably do 2 a year. Heck, you might be able to get away with 1 really big expansion a year, and I'd be fine. But it seems like they're rushing them out every couple of months. Next we have a 5 mana, 3 attack, 4 health minion called the Sightless Ranger. It has Rush and Overkill to summon 2 1/1 bats. So that might be a little bit better, because you could maybe 2 or 3 turns kill enough minions with Overkill to get 6 bats on the field. That might make sense. But in practicality, you probably only get like 4 bats more often than not. Next we have a 5 mana, 3 attack, 8 health minion called the Snapjaw Shell Fighter. Whenever an adjacent minion takes damage, this minion takes it instead. This might be an interesting card, certainly. It's a new concept. You do this so that you could protect taunt minions. So you put a taunt on one side of this card and another taunt on the other. Anytime anybody attacks those taunt minions, this minion takes the damage instead. More interestingly, what happens if you put a minion with Divine Shield and taunt here? Do they, on the first attack, lose Divine Shield? Or does this minion that's adjacent to it take the damage and they keep Divine Shield? Or do they both lose Divine Shield and take damage? This one calls for some experimenting. Next we have a 6 mana, 5 attack, 5 health legendary minion called Mojo Master Z. I believe this is the first legendary we've seen in the neutral set. Battle cry, each player, set each player to 5 crystals. Well, I don't get why this would... why do you want to do this? You could probably ruin an opponent's strategy for a few turns if you did this. If you could get this really cheap somehow, there is some card that lets you summon or get a 1/1 copy of legendary cards. So if you had a 1 mana 1/1 copy of this and you played it on like the second turn, which you probably couldn't, then that would get you a couple more mana crystals, but also give your opponent more mana crystals. More realistically, you'd play this on the 10th turn to set both players back to 5. And I guess that would kind of make sense if you've blown through all your cards and you have nothing better to do. So on the 10th turn you play 4 mana on something else, you play this, and then you go back to 5. That might hurt your opponent a little bit, but you could probably hurt your opponent a lot better in other ways. So I'm very iffy on that one. Next we have a 7 mana, 5 attack, 7 health beast called Amani Warbear. It has Rush and Taunt. We've not seen a lot of things with Rush and Taunt, but yeah, this looks pretty good. Maybe a little low on the health, but I mean on the attack, but that's it. Next we have a 7 mana, 7 attack, 4 health dragon called the Crowd Roaster. Battlecry, if you're holding a dragon, deal 7 damage to an enemy minion. Yeah, if you're building a dragon deck, this makes sense, but if you're not, that's pretty low health, and you probably want to skip it. Next we have a 7 mana, 5 attack, 10 health minion called Line Cracker, and it has Overkill, double this minion's attack. So I think this would actually work rather well. You play this on the 7th turn in the attacks on the 8th, then you've got a 10-10 if you overkill. Then on the 9th turn you attack again, then you've got a 20-20 or 20-10 at that point, and then you'd have to attack a minion a third time on like the 10th turn to get it to a 40-10, and at that point you've got a 1-turn kill, which you probably wouldn't need to do that. Just getting it to a 20-10 would probably be enough, because by the 8th turn you probably have done some other damage to the enemy here. So I think this is pretty playable. Is there some way to double overkill effects? Not so far. We haven't seen anything like that. I wouldn't be surprised if it takes a year before some card comes out that does that. But with its 10 health, it's still a pretty good card. It's weak on the attack in the first turn, but it's still pretty good. We're at the last page. It seems like every expansion is 24 pages long. They've got it down to a science how many cards you're going to get, or they're going to release. Next we have a 7 mana, 2 attack, 7 health minion called Rabble Bouncer. It has taunt and it costs 1 less for each enemy minion, which means theoretically it could be free if your opponent has 7 minions. That being said, if your opponent has 7 minions and you're playing this for free, 7 health with taunt is not going to last you very long. In fact, I don't think there is a calculation here in the math, if I think about it, where this makes any sense at all. Like, if they had 1 minion and you played this on the 6th turn, and it's a 2/7 with taunt, it's still not a good deal. If they had 3 minions and so this cost 4 mana and played on the 4th turn, and this was a 2/7, that's still not a good deal. Yeah. There's no way this balances out to make it a good deal. It's just a bad card that's complicated, in my opinion. Next we have an 8 mana, 8 attack, 5 health minion called The Undertaker. Let's see. So, I was expecting some kind of reference to, like, The Undertaker from WWF or WWE. Battlecry, gain the death rattle effects of 3 friendly minions that died this game. I imagine this would synergize in some weird ways. So this does feel very playable, but you just have to you have to strategize there and have 3 very specific death rattle effects that you would want. There is a death rattle effect, by the way, that says keep all your enchantments and return to the hand. So you might be able to like play this and then return it to your hand while keeping all the enchantments and then play it again. I don't feel like the 5 health is too much of a detriment for what you're getting, because you're kind of trying to get death rattle effects activated. Next we have an 8 mana, 2 attack, 14 health minion. That's quite a lot of health. The Moshog Enforcer. It has taunt and divine shield. Not terrible, but kinda terrible. Like the problem here is the attack is super low. If you were to balance this out and take 7 off here and make it a 9/7, I would be a little bit happier with that, or an 8/8 would be even better with taunt and divine shield. But the fact that you've got all this extra health that isn't really going to play much of a factor, because this is a card that would likely be silenced. Just silence to get rid of the taunt, silence to get rid of the shield, and then you don't even have to attack it because it's so weak. And meanwhile, even if it's not silenced and it's sitting there and it actually is acting as a defense, it plays a horrible offense. This might protect you for 3 or 4 turns even, but you still wouldn't be doing much damage to the enemy hero. So I think that's pretty skippable as a card. Next we have a 9 mana, 7 attack, 7 health beast minion called, what is that, Undasta. Undasta has rush and overkill to summon a beast from your hand, which that could be kind of amazing because there are definitely some major legendary class beasts, particularly for hunter class, where you could play this on the 9th turn, attack on the 9th turn because of rush, and then summon some 10 mana or higher beasts to your hand. Then finally, the last card is, I believe, the only 10 mana card in this entire expansion. 10 mana, 9 attack, 6 health. The Hakar Soul Flare, and it's a minion, so I was right about all neutral cards being minions, at least in this expansion. Death Rattle, shuffle a corrupted blood into each player's deck. I don't know what corrupted blood. So yeah, depending on what the corrupted blood does, do you lose the game when you draw corrupted blood, or does corrupted blood do something insanely different? And until you know what that does, you really can't speak too much to this card. The attack is decent but not great. The health is kind of low. I'd say a lot of the healths are kind of low on some of these cards. Yeah, where overall I would say I'm pretty satisfied with the state of this expansion as it sits. I'm kind of satisfied with the cards available in standard, but we are on the precipice of a lot of the expansions being moved over to Wild, and if we lose 2 expansions, these 100 and I'm guessing 166 pages here of cards, this may drop down to like 144 pages. So we could easily lose 20 pages, 8 cards each, as far as options to play in standard, and the Wild will then gain them. I'm suspecting Unguru and Frozen Throne both fall off pretty quickly in the next 6 months. And that will leave us with just like Witchwood, Boomsday, and Rumble, unless they come out with even more expansions, and then that gets right back to the problem I have with just expansions happening too early and too often. As for Wild has 256 pages. So that's a pretty big difference there. That's almost 100 pages of cards more. Meanwhile, I'm still definitely struggling to get cards that I would love to get before the expansions get replaced with the most recent expansion. So there is this problem of just too much coming out to be a free-to-play player. If I can spell missing right. I just wanted to use the search key to show just here on standard alone, like ignore the fact that there's tons of wild cards that I don't have. Just on standard alone, there's tons of legendary cards that cost 1600 dust. I've been struggling to get up to 2000 dust. Tons of cards that require 400 dust to make epic cards. And the cost is kind of crazy. It's 1600 dust to get a legendary, 400 to get an epic, and it's like 100 to get a rare and 40 to get a common card. There's just a lot of cards here that equate to options that I don't have, and all I can really do is do the daily quests and try to get gold and try and open those packs. So when a new expansion is available and we can buy packs, I probably will think about getting maybe 10 packs per some of the older expansions, but maybe not. Like Mechathune is a great example. I have 30 pages alone of missing cards just in standard. But I think I'm kind of getting a little off topic. I have 53 pages of missing cards in general. Kind of getting off topic. Those were the neutral cards for the new expansion. The new expansion seems pretty good. We've got our gold. We're ready for it to happen. I think it's happening December 4th. And so that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. When you subscribe, please click the notification bell. If you want to friend or follow me on things like Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, Steam, or Battle.net, all of those links are down below in the description box. Also, I have links where you can support me through Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list. That's it for this recording. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.